Hi, everybody. Bit of a programming change. I promised Terry Sweeney, but you've got me instead. I am Becky Bracken, editor with Dark Reading, and I am here at the Dark Reading News Desk, live from Black Hat 2023. We welcome today Noam Moshe, who is a vulnerability researcher at Claroty. He is here today to talk about his incredibly interesting research titled A Pain in the NAS, Exploiting Cloud Connectivity to Pawn Your NAS. Great title. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
So let's just get into it. Tell me about your research. Tell me about give me a good overview of what we're learning here.
Okay, so basically during Pong-to-On competition last October,
Yes.
We tried in attacking NAS devices, and actually two popular NAS manufacturers, it being Synology and Western Digital.
Okay.
And our goal was actually achieving remote code execution of these devices through the cloud. We actually abused a few cloud mechanisms and managed to attack and get access to all of the cloud-enabled devices.
Wow.
Meaning we potentially had the ability to both read, write sensitive information. It could be, for example, pictures, documents, some kind of everything you'd like to back up, including the ability to, of course, override them. You can just imagine the potential effect it could have on people. And in addition, we actually managed to exploit a few other vulnerabilities and chain them together in order to actually achieve remote code execution on these devices.
So let's talk about some of those that you chained together. So you entered through the cloud, and then what did you do?
Okay, so basically we tried to look at new interesting techniques. And we noticed that while user authentication is very popular and they have a lot of frameworks, a lot of different design patterns and stuff that can make sure that every user authentication is checked correctly and is, of course, authorized and everything is good. In the case of device authentication, that's not the case. I mean, the industry went way ahead in user authentication. However, in the case of device authentication, it got left behind. So in both Synology and Western Digital case, we actually abused the weak device authentication to the cloud and basically managed to impersonate a device. And that way we could basically redirect user traffic to us by impersonating their device, and that way leverage their authenticated user tokens.
That is very interesting. And really a trend that I'm hearing is this idea in identity access management that the device has its own identity. And it seems like this is right along the lines with maybe everything needs its own identity within your network system.
Exactly, because you see both companies actually implemented a device authentication, meaning somehow the device needs to connect to the cloud and says, hey, I'm this and that device. And then whenever the user tries to connect it, they are routed to just their own device. However, because they didn't really understand how to implement and in a secure way the device authentication, and instead of using like some kind of secrets or like PKI or private tokens, they chose to use like public knowledge. In the case of Western Digital, it was the device's GUID, which we managed to basically exfiltrate in various methods. And that way, because only public knowledge was used to authenticate the device to the cloud, we managed to impersonate it. And once we impersonated the device, I mean, the attack chain was pretty straightforward. Simply whenever the user tries to access their device, which most of the times happens automatically because of background app refresh, they were redirected to us and just basically gave us their authentication tokens.
Wow. So what do device manufacturers need to know, and what is their role in mitigating this?
So a lot of the time when I see device authentication, I see the manufacturers using stuff like a MAC address or serial numbers. Now, a lot of the times these are not the actual secrets. I mean, a MAC address is only 3 bytes that is random.
Yeah.
And of course they have the OUI, which is well known, and serial number could be sequential. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's a weak authentication. I believe that instead of using this like public knowledge identifiers, like a strong PKI or some kind of authentication should be used. I mean, you wouldn't let a user authenticate with just its username. You
Right.
need this strong password and making sure that it is actually the user. So I think they should put a lot of effort and understanding that even though they control the devices, attacker could impersonate the devices and try to leverage their way into the cloud by impersonating a device.
So what do security teams need to know? So now we know the devices. So what do we do from the inside?
So basically, when I try to look at IoT devices, I try and understand what kind of like requirements and secrets the device holds. That's the job. It could be like sometimes we see, of course, serial number MAC addresses being used. Sometimes we see like private keys inserted into the device's firmware, which is not secure either. I mean, I think security experts should understand exactly what devices do they have in their network and what is that risk that comes with it. Because, for example, if I have, let's say, a cloud-connected NAS storage device, it could be used by attacker to leverage their way into my private network and into my local network, which is not internet facing. However, because of this like tunnel that is created between my device, my IoT device, which sometimes I don't manage directly, attackers could use their way and leverage their way into my network through the cloud.
Do you think that the industry by and large is underestimating how increasingly paper thin the wall between hardware and software and the cloud and your on-prem really is?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it also, sometimes there are tons of different devices like these IoT or esoteric devices, which I call them unmanaged devices.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And for a company, it's not clear how can you monitor them and view them and like categorize them and understand what's in your network. For attackers, these kind of devices that might connect to some kind of a cloud somewhere that is managed by like the manufacturer, these kind of devices could be used to leverage their ways into their infrastructure. And it should be monitored and well understood what the risk of these devices, these rogue devices, could inflict on.
And the enormous attack surface that they provide as well, right?
For sure. I mean, for example, because we don't manage these devices, we don't know what's going on in their, like, they are a closed box for us. And this closed box could be abused by attackers in order to basically
So do
leverage
they
the
need
way.
to open those up?
Well, I think we need better visibility. I mean, I think it's both the case of like the companies knowing what unmanaged devices are in their basically category and
Yes.
what they have. And also, of course, I mean, I think there should be like well-defined what is connected to what. For example, if I have an IoT device that's connected to the cloud, I should be aware of it. I should know what that it is. It could pose a risk.
Yeah.
I-
Fascinating. Okay, so what's next? What is the next iteration? Now we know what the problem is. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think that actually in both cases, like the company, once we reported our like investigation and our vulnerabilities to them, they understood the problem behind it and immediately like fixed it and remedied it.
So they're
completely.
open to dealing with the issue.
Completely professional, and I think in both cases they basically understood and changed it from like public knowledge, like a device is GUID, which is like way out there and so easy to obtain, to actual PKI, actual secrets, actual unique identifiers for each device, just like we accept from, let's say, a username and a password, that each user has a unique password, strong password. The same should be expected from a device. They should be identifiable by a secret that is not easily guessable and not easily obtainable.
Good points all. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your important work with us. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.